All right, welcome back, everyone. Today we have Ayala Parker. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, and she specializes in relationship therapy and intimacy coaching. Some people might call her a sex therapist. So, Ayala, thanks for joining us today.
I'm so happy to be here. It's really exciting.
Yeah, so I'm curious, how did you find yourself in the world of therapy and what made you interested in relationship therapy?
Yeah, I think for my whole life, I've been interested in people and just how people work, how relationships work. I was never really great in school, so I never really actually thought that I would go on to be a therapist. Math and science were struggles for me. But then I found a college where I didn't have to do those things. And it was really geared towards like building therapists to go on to grad school. So I was like, oh, great, I can study psychology and then probably go on to grad school and do a master's in counseling. So yeah, that's what I did. It was a little bit of a roundabout way, but once I found the track, it was kind of a straight shot. And then I thought that I wanted to work with kids. I did a lot of like nannying and babysitting when I was younger, and then worked with inpatient youth in a inpatient program, a residential program here in Portland with really, really tough kids, a lot of them in foster care. And that was like really intense but meaningful work, and I learned a lot. But then I realized I actually just want to have my own kids and work with adults, partially because I think that's where a lot of the impact can happen. But also, I'm just interested and really thrive in how I work with adults and on intimate relationships specifically.
Yeah, I think working with kids is really tough because you're also not just really working with the kid, you're
Ex-
working with their family, and sometimes their family isn't very receptive to things. So,
yeah, I felt like I was kind of sneakily working with the parenting system when I was trying to work with the kid, but I had to like kind of go through them, and that felt a little odd. So I was like, I would just work with the parents instead, just be really direct about it.
yeah, totally. How did you get interested in relationship therapy and sex therapy, intimacy coaching? What made you want to do that?
Yeah, I think it's such a vulnerable place that people don't talk about a lot and like really need support in. And most people who have sexual problems actually have relationship problems. And so they go together. So, like, in an intertwined way. And I just want to get in there and really help people thrive and have pleasure and enjoy their lives.
Do you mostly work with individuals or do you actually work with couples?
I work a lot with couples. I have both, but after I had my first baby, I really geared my practice more towards working with couples. I think it's faster than working with individuals, but sometimes, it does need to be some individual work before working with the couple. It just kind of depends. And it's harder to get two people in the office sometimes than one.
I applaud you for working with couples. I do not work with couples. I have tried and it's such a different dynamic and I personally was like I'm getting pulled in too many directions. So I just work with individuals, but I'm always so impressed by people that work with couples because that's a lot. It's hard to do.
Yeah, it's definitely more stuff in the room and yes, a different dynamic to hold for sure.
What are really common relationship issues that you've been seeing lately?
Yeah, it's so much gets boiled down into like intimacy and just actually being able to bear ourselves to someone else. Sometimes it's hardest actually to our significant other because the risk is really high. Not that we're like thinking about it that way, but our nervous systems are like, I cannot bear to imagine the possibility of this person going away from me. And so I'm not going to take this risk to tell them how I'm really feeling or tell them what I really need. And so much suffering happens there. There's so much self abandonment, and we stop even listening to ourselves and what we need. I think that gets into the core, but a lot of people will come in saying, we're just fighting all the time, or yeah, we're just like not feeling close like we used to. We have sexual problems, like one partner just never wants to have sex or just feels like they're pulling away all the time. life is just so full and it's hard to connect.
And what are some of the most common misconceptions about sex therapy? Because I feel like people don't even really know what, and again, I know that we have way better modern terms. It's intimacy coaching, but what are some of the things people think about it?
Yeah, I think some people, like the biggest one probably is just that it's so much about sex, and it can be for sure. And there are nitty-gritty things to get into there. But sex therapy really starts way before you get into the bedroom, way before you get into bed with each other and get your clothes off, right? It's really about relational dynamics. How willing are you to be vulnerable? How clear are you willing to be with the person that you're with?
I think a lot of people think that sex therapy is like about the actual act of having sex, and that you're going to tell them this is what you should be doing, and it's no, that's not your job. It's to figure out like why they're having trouble getting to the actual act or getting to the bedroom is kind of more of the problem.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's not my job is not to teach mechanics of how things work. That can come in if needed, right? But I think a lot of it also is about interrupting myths about sex. People have so many like cultural beliefs about what sex is or isn't, or who it should be for or who it shouldn't be for. And so we really get to interrupt those and make it okay for everybody. Make it, I think another one is actually to like take orgasm as the focus off and let it be more exploratory. Especially this is helpful for women because so often we're taught that sex should really center men and male pleasure. It's all about the penis, right? And that leaves women out a lot of the time. So, yeah, I mean, this is really important for women to hear, but also for men to get to know that it's not just all about them. And for that matter, they like need to learn how to actually like let go of that urgency of just getting to orgasm and take it more exploratorily too, right? And there's so much pleasure in slowness in just taking our time and playing and just being together in our bodies.
Yeah, I like that.
I like that a lot too. Do you feel like some of the problems with sex come from our modern, like fast-paced lifestyle or other things that you see societally leaking in that would affect people, like what their goals are with sex and things like that?
Yeah, I think that certainly the fast paced and like goal oriented and just like always pushing mentality is not very conducive to a slow, pleasure oriented sexual experience. So it really is like a rerouting of our attention. And certainly we're very much encouraged to stay in our heads a lot and not get into our bodies. So that's a real disconnect also. Or it's like binary, right? It's either you're in your head or you're in your body. I hear a lot of clients talking about how they'll like have sex and then it's like really quick flip kind of back into their regular life. And there isn't that like kind of integration of the experience. Sometimes that's functional, like parents, right? There's not always super long times to have a full meal kind of sex, and all kinds of sex are important. Sometimes I like to say sometimes there's like snack sex, or sometimes it's like a breakfast or a lunch, and sometimes it's like a 5-course meal, right? There are like different ways to orient to it, and they're all important. Sometimes it's a solo experience. They're all important, but it's good to know what we're getting into.
What are some of the things that I'm I'm interested in what men are saying too, but when women come into your office, like what are the things that they're saying are the problem, or what experience are they having that they're not liking?
Yeah, sometimes it's just that they don't know how to express what they want, or even before that, they don't even know for sure what they want, let alone how to express it. And sometimes it feels like they are expressing it, but their partner's just getting it. Sometimes it's that they just aren't feeling interested in sex at all, like they used to be. And that's kind of confusing or frustrating. It feels like they have this desire to go towards it, but their body just doesn't respond. And that happens with a lot of parents, right? A lot of people who go through body changes. I have a client who had breast cancer and went through chemo, and that was a huge impact on her sexual health. It really went offline for a very long time, and it was really hard to bring it back because it was completely different. Her body was so foreign. She really lost trust in her body. So that was a big process. And it's an ongoing process forever. There's never like an arrival, but certainly a lot of change can happen. But then, yeah, a lot of like new parents also. But again, a big body change, and we have to rediscover the relationship dynamic, which is different, right? After a baby, even a second or third baby. I think the first is the most intense in that way, but it can happen after each one, right? And certainly the body goes through a lot each time. So yeah, really like deeply connecting with ourselves, and then also deeply connecting with our body and exploring like what do I like in this moment? What do I like in this new body?
Yeah.
And how can I express that?
I can definitely relate to the parent side of things. I have an almost 2-year-old. She's the first baby. And yeah, it's like when you're exhausted and figuring out how to take care of a whole new person, that sex may not be the first thing you think of because the baby's down for a nap and you're like, I just want to lay on the floor and stare at the ceiling. And that's really all I feel like I can do right now. And also, as the woman in the relationship, like you're the one who gave birth, however that happened. And you also, yeah, went through this huge body change. And just because the baby is here doesn't mean that like you are fully done processing everything that you just went to. And I think men have a hard time understanding that. And I mean, how could they? They're not the ones going through it. But I do think that that's an important conversation to have with your partner if you're having a baby. Like, first of all, you're not supposed to have sex for like at least 6 weeks, usually. And I don't know how many women are ready 6 weeks later to be like, all right, let's go, let's do it.
Yeah, totally. I think I had so many thoughts as you were talking, but like thinking about intercourse, like being sex also I think is a misconception. There are so many ways to have sex.
Yeah.
And like physical intimacy, there are again so many ways to have physical intimacy up to and through having intercourse. But certainly, right, the body is not necessarily ready after 6 weeks to have penetrative sex after a baby. And yeah, I think not just are our bodies going through a huge experience after giving birth, but our whole selves are really different after that experience, hormonally, energetically, like all these different ways. We're so different after a huge transformation like that. And our relationships really need to catch up, right? Like where is the mental load split? Where is the actual labor split? Women often are expected to take on so much more after having a baby, or just generally with or without kids. Women are expected to take on more of the house labor sort of thing. And that's not going to work. That's not sexy, right? So it's super important to recognize where are the splits and how can we talk about it to make it more even, to make women have more space in our minds and in our bodies to want to have sex.
Yeah.
I'm curious if someone is struggling, from stress or physical changes like postpartum or breast cancer changes, and they want to show up for their partner and maintain the relationship, but maybe don't feel on a bodily level like they want to have sex. What kinds of, I guess not advice, because I guess therapy is not supposed to be exactly advice, but what do you walk people through to help address that?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's guidance and intervention to happen there. And I think I would start with just like that love of wanting to be present with your partner, of wanting them to be taken care of, and communicating that, oh, I really deeply want to care for you, and I can't do it in this way right now, right? It doesn't feel accessible to me. So like validating that desire and that longing in your partner that you are probably hearing about, and then exploring like what are the buckets of intimacy that are available to you? How can we still be intimate, even if we're not sexually intimate? Or which parts of sexual intimacy do feel available, right? Is it like I can make out, but I don't want to go further than that? And so we can still fill up a little bit that way? Or, where is the line? Where is the actual boundary? When does it come up, right? And it's so like personal, right? It'll depend on whoever I'm talking to, but that's where I would start is, that validating and that connection, that deep love, like sitting in that deep love for each other. And, it's so great. We want to connect, but there are these sticky places. And then how can we kind of get more specific about where is it actually the stickiest and where is there maybe a little more movement?
I love the validating.
Validating is something that so many people struggle with. Not that many people do it really well. It's kind of surprising.
Yeah, it's such an easy thing to do, but if you're not thinking about it or doing it the right way, then that it's really tough for the person who needs the validation who isn't getting it. I would love to talk about it doesn't have to be women, just anyone in a relationship who continues to have sex with their partner when they don't want to, but they do it anyways just to make them happy or to avoid a fight. What is I don't want to say danger, but what are the consequences of that?
I think danger is actually an appropriate word here because
Okay.
it gets really, it's scary, right, to hear that word, but that's how it can kind of feel. And that's definitely in our nervous system and our bodies, how it can end up feeling. So that I would say that's the danger. That's the risk is that, when we cross our own boundaries over and over and over again, there's a lot of harm that can happen. It certainly builds distrust in our partners. Again, even though they don't know that they're crossing a boundary, we're not going to trust physical intimacy. We're going to start, just getting tighter and tighter and tighter around this. And it's going to be harder to want it because we feel violated. And so, I think women aren't given a lot of space to say no or to feel like we can say no, right? A lot of men also get rejection sensitivity, they don't take no well, even if it's not a loud version of that. It doesn't have to be. I think women are really sensitive to any pulling away. And so we want to keep that closeness where we can. And sometimes it feels like it'll be harder to say no than to just cross our own boundary and kind of internalize that experience. We want to be easy breezy, beautiful, right, on the outside and just keep all of that turmoil on the inside. But that really makes us sick in so many ways, physically sick, it can happen, but also emotionally sick. It's just not good for our relationships, right? It's really in the long term, it's gonna really rot the dynamic to keep doing that.
Yeah. I'm curious if you've seen, I think of women, but it could be anyone who have developed pelvic floor dysfunction, physical tightness, or, have you seen anyone who it's coming to you because they're having a physical response to their nervous system saying no, or to their body feeling there's that lack of trust with their body?
Yeah, I would say that's not my area of specialty, but certainly I know that is definitely something that happens, pain with intercourse. And just that makes me think of just we're tightening all over the place. And our body is literally saying no. We need to build more safety and more softness in ourselves, in the relationship. There are physiological aspects to that too, which again are not my area of expertise. But that's what it makes me think of, is that safety that just isn't there. And that word can be confusing for people, right? Because you can say, I trust my partner. They would never want to hurt me. We love each other so deeply. Why is this happening? It can be really confusing. But on a really deep level, somehow our bodies are saying, I need something different, or I need something more connecting, more soft, more slow to actually feel regulated and safe.
Yeah. And I know it's going to be different for every person, like how they're going to find that safety or repair their intimate relationship with their partner, but just kind of like on a basic level, if someone has been crossing their own boundaries for a long time, where can they start to kind of like get that trust back and maybe at some point want to be intimate with their partner again?
Yeah, I think that's a really great question. I would say the very first step is just recognizing, oh, I have been doing this. This is part of my experience. And sitting with that, like there can be a lot of grief and shame and like a lot of feelings that come up, and even just acknowledging, oh, I have been doing this. And then the next step would be talking to your partner, at least making an agreement with yourself. Okay, I'm going to really try to not do this. I'm going to come up with a way to communicate when there's a no coming up. It's really hard to do it in the moment, so I really encourage talking about it with your partner outside of a sexual moment, not when it's actively happening first, because like I said, it's really hard to do it in that heat of the moment. So yeah, talking to your partner, saying, I have been doing this and I really don't want to. It's not good for me and it's not good for us. So come up with a safe word. You could just say, I'm going to, say this thing, or I'm just going to tap you on the shoulder, or sometimes nonverbal cues actually can be most helpful in those moments when it's so hard to say something, but have some sort of agreement. The other thing is maybe you take sex off the table for a while. Don't just agree with your partner to not do this, but to have some other sort of physical intimacy together and emotional intimacy, right? Like both are super important. But yeah, tuning into what actually fills you up, what do you like, and do those things together with sex not being on the table, because the escalation to sex and intercourse can happen really quickly, sometimes faster than our bodies are like ready for or wanting. And again, it can be hard to slow it down or even say, okay, I want sex, but I'm not quite ready yet. Like I still need some more connection or anything like that. So yeah, go slow, tune into yourself, talk to your partner, and yeah, explore with what else besides sex, what kind of physical and emotional intimacy feels really good to get you feeling connected, to build the safety and security net, to then go on to get into that super vulnerable body on body place.
Do you ever work with couples where like maybe one person is going through that situation we just described and the other person is like, well, I'm not going to take sex off the table for a month or 3 months or whatever it is? Do you ever get that resistance where someone says, I'm not doing that?
Usually not that strongly. I definitely
Yeah.
get both saying, oh, that sounds scary, right? A lot of the times in this dynamic, they're already not having sex. So it can be like kind of scary for the partner who really wants sex to say, we're taking it off the table. It's sort of a backwards. They just, yeah, are like worried that it's going to take sex all off the table forever, right? And so I do a lot of validating. I'm just saying, this is actually going to get you good sex sooner, right? Like, I'll try to connect with them. You don't actually want to have sex with your partner when they don't want to have sex. That's actually not sexy. Let's feel into that. That's kind of yucky, right?
Yeah.
I know that you want to have good sex where your partner is saying a full yes. That's actually what's going to make it feel really good. You go ahead and masturbate when you need to. You can do that. And the goal here is to build safety and connection between the two of you so that you can have a thriving sex life ultimately. But it's not going to get there if we just keep doing the same thing.
That makes sense. Yeah. And I know you mentioned earlier, one of the most common problems people face is not feeling open to be vulnerable. And what are some of the reasons behind that you see? Or are there like deeper problems under that come up? Because I feel like on the surface, a lot of people might not identify that as being an issue that they're facing.
Yeah, it can get really deep. I think, sometimes looking at the history, like not just the history of their relationship, but like their family history as a child, right, can certainly come into play here. And that would be more specific. But yeah, they're self-abandoning somewhere in the history, right? Somehow they learned I have to keep the peace or keep the people around me settled and manage that all by myself so that I can survive, right? As a kid, we're dependent on our caregivers, and that can mean our like physical needs, but also our emotional needs. It doesn't feel safe to a child when their adult caregiver is super activated. So then they feel like they have to manage that, get the caregiver to calm down, or somehow they internalize it as their responsibility. So that is a common dynamic, especially I think generationally. Millennials are probably like one of the first ones to be like, emotions are super important. Let's
Yeah.
look at this in parenting, right? We're not the only ones, but it's a bigger movement in our generation, I think. And so, right, like older generations did not have as much emotional regulation capacity. So I think that happened a lot for people in our generation. So yeah, and again, for women in particular, I think this happens a lot because not just from our parents, but then culturally, we're given the burden of managing the emotions, of navigating, making everything la-di-da around us, right? Keep it cool, calm, and collected. So yeah, we really deeply internalize that, even so much as to not express what we need or express our feelings. We end up following other people a lot, or just centering them, and kind of really there can be hypervigilance, like where are they going? What are they feeling? I'm going to anticipate their needs ahead of time so that they want to keep me around.
Okay, I have a really big question. This may take the episode in a slightly different direction. So, Rachel, do you have any other questions? Because this is going in a different direction a little bit.
I was just going to ask if there's anything in regard to really common things like anxiety and depression, if there's any, again, everyone's going to have their own specific needs, but if there's any tools that you find helpful for people who are feeling like anxious a lot or depressed a lot and they feel like that's a block in their sexual connection.
Yeah, I think it's going to probably pull from what I've already said, but like acknowledging that this is going on for you, noticing like how does it impact these different areas, including sex? Like how does it impact your desire to go towards your partner, or how much you're like zooming inward and just like wanting to hide, right? That can be a big experience with those things. How connected are you with your body, right? Are you feeling really heavy? Are you feeling really buzzy, right? What is the body experience of those things? And then talking to your partner and kind of making a plan. Like what can you still do together that feels good for both of you in those moments? And sometimes it might like quote unquote work and get you somewhere more desirable, more pleasurable. And sometimes it might just stay, and that can be disappointing, right? I think that's another thing, another emotion that people have a lot of trouble having is disappointment. And there's not always a fix for that. People try to really fix it quickly, right? If I'm disappointed, what can I do to make myself feel better? And sometimes there's an answer and sometimes not. And more often, it's actually just so important to feel the disappointment. I heard somebody say, in order to have it all, you have to have it all. And I like to change it to, in order to feel at all, you have to feel it all.
I like that.
I like that too. Thanks. So yeah, we don't just get to choose how we feel. We have to feel what's happening for us. And yes, there are some ways that we can like impact or buffer how we feel. You know, I might know, okay, I like to eat chocolate. That makes me feel good. That gives me a pleasurable experience. If I'm sad, I can eat chocolate and then I'm sad and having pleasure of chocolate, but it doesn't make the sadness go away, right? So I think also having the complexity of feeling is something that people have a lot of hard time with. We often feel more than one thing at once, and that can be confusing. But yeah, like building our muscles around, okay, I'm having this experience. What can I also do with that? How can I have connection and feel the way that I'm feeling. I don't have to just have it be either or. I don't have to limit myself to having connection only when I'm feeling like I already want to have sex or like I'm already super ready to engage.
Yeah.
Yeah. The both and holding both. That's beautiful.
Easy to say, harder to do.
Harder to do. Okay, Katie, I'm ready for what your twist is. I'm curious.
What do you think about porn?
Yeah, super important topic. Thank you. This is not off
I know
topic
it's
at all.
yeah, no, I know it's like a huge topic, and that's why I said like we could get into a whole lot of things with porn, but
Yeah.
what do you think about it just in general?
Yeah, I think that there is bad porn out there, and I think that there is really good porn out there. And I think it's sort of, there's not like a broad brushstroke answer. It can be really get into specific couples and like how are you in relationship with it, I think is the question, right? What is it serving for you? How often are you going to it? Are you feeling dependent on it? Is it a secret? Is it open? Do you do it alone only? Do you do it together, right? There's so many, ways to kind of think about how is this functioning for you? And that's on the relationship level. And then I don't know if you were asking about like kind of culturally, how do
Yeah,
we?
that too. Do you think it's more damaging to relationships like more often than not, or do you think people really can have a healthy relationship with it? I know right now there's just a lot of noise about no one should be watching porn. It's bad. And like, there's the whole issue of are these people consenting to being filmed? Are they being paid? Are they like all of that? I'm not really talking about that. That's different. But do you think there is is there a way for that to be healthy in a relationship really?
I think so. And let's imagine that we're living in a world where the porn is ethical and everyone there is consenting. I think if you have I think you can have a well relationship with it, but it takes, inquiring in yourself about that and communicating with partners about that. One way to think about it is almost as like a polyamorous sort of thought, right? Like in a sense, you are engaging with other people. It's just one way. So yeah, like how's the balance, I think is a really important question. How is the balance of it in your relationship? Does your partner feel jealous? Are you tending to those feelings? By the way, jealousy is an okay feeling to feel. It doesn't necessarily mean anything has to change, but it does need attention, right? And care. That's, I think, the core of that. And that could be a whole other conversation also. But back to the porn, like how is it functioning in your relationship? And I think there's so much shame that can go along with porn use. And so a lot of people do keep it really secret, which I think that's just never going to set you up well to have secrets or things that are like off limits. That shows, okay, this really needs some attention and probably is in the water here. That's like part of the problem. But yeah, I think people can engage with it in a way that is totally functional and okay.
Do you work with people in polyamorous relationships or open relationships?
Yeah, it's a pretty hot topic in Portland. A lot of people are dabbling or doing it for sure. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, we're in Arkansas. I don't know if we told you that. We're in Fayetteville. I don't know that I don't know if there's a lot of openness about open relationships where we live, but in Portland, I'm sure it's a lot different. Rachel lived in Portland for a while too.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely it's more common there than here. I'll tell you that.
What? I'm super interested in what is, as a therapist, what is that dynamic like when you're working with polyamory?
Yeah. I think it just like complexifies the relational space, right? It's okay. It's not just two people, it's three or more people. And there are so many different ways of configuring the dynamic or the constellation, as a lot of people in polyam spaces talk about it. There's also polyamory, and then there's ethical non-monogamy, which have some crossover, but they're a little different. So yeah, I think when we're talking about like a kind of true polyamorous constellation where there's multiple people all in relationship together, both really demand just a lot of personal insight, like a lot of self-awareness, a lot of like tools to manage and be with yourself, and then also a lot of relationship skills, a lot of openness, a lot of communication to make it go well. Otherwise, I think a lot more of what I see is people who don't have the skills or who like kind of went into it pretty quickly without thinking about, what they would do in these different situations. And that can be really painful because all of a sudden it feels kind of like a really big mess that they didn't expect and they don't know how to manage or navigate.
Yeah. Do you find that, so say like someone is in a monogamous relationship and then at some point the conversation comes up about opening up the relationship, whatever that means. Do you find that a lot of times one partner is doing that just because they feel like, well, I guess I can't give them what they need and I don't want to lose them, so I'm going to say okay to this? Or I feel like I've seen people do that before where it's, well, it's either this or get divorced and I don't want to lose this person, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. What is your what's your take on that? Or what would you say to someone in that position?
Yeah, I have seen that dynamic definitely many times. And I say, if I catch them in the decision process before they do that, then I say, don't do that. Don't start this new, like super complex journey from a place of lacking in your relationship. Like, if you want to stay in this relationship, make it super strong and then revisit the question, do we want to open up and have, more experiences? But it's not going to work. I feel really confident in saying it. It's not going to work. You probably will end up getting divorced if you're doing it to try to save the marriage or save the relationship. Not always, but usually what I see is when you start from a place of lacking or like trying to fix something or fill a place that's not being met, it doesn't go very well.
Yeah.
That gap usually just keeps getting bigger.
Yeah, and I think it's like that with a lot of things. If you're doing something for the wrong reason, it's probably not going to turn out the way that you wanted it to turn out.
And I know you mentioned jealousy earlier. I'm not a therapist, but I see a lot people feeling jealous of their partner, having a coworker of the opposite sex or just other interactions that people are having. And I know you said that jealousy isn't always necessarily a bad thing. So, how do you walk people through tending to their jealousy and like exploring what's under that?
Yeah, usually we explore what's the need underneath the jealousy. It might be like, I need more attention. I don't feel cared for by you. Like, I need some more like intensity in the emotional realm. I need some more attention from you. Or I want to feel important, right? Those kinds of things. What's the need underneath the jealousy? What do you feel like you're not getting that you are imagining that this other person is getting? That's usually the dynamic. And so it's not that that other thing has to stop, because actually you probably aren't getting the thing, even if that other person also isn't getting it, right? But like, what do you actually really need to feel that deep connection again? Yeah, kind of a simple answer, actually.
That makes a lot of sense.
Okay, I have one last question. And this kind of leads into the jealousy thing, I think. What about when someone's been cheated on? They find out, or maybe the other partner says, "Hey, I did this terrible thing." What about in those situations if the couple decides to stay together? My guess would be that sex is going to be pretty complicated for a while. What do you think about that, and how can people repair that?
Yeah, I think, like you said, repair being the focus is super important. And this can take a long time. I mean, things can certainly feel a lot better, but there are probably going to be lots and lots and lots of waves of feeling it all over again, right? Depending on the intensity or the severity of the like breach of trust. And again, also what the history is like for that person who got cheated on like the kind of the bucket of trust. How is this going to add to that? How big of an experience is it? Will kind of also impact how long it takes. But yeah, getting really good at the repair process, like having space for the feelings that come up, all of the feelings, right? Sadness, rage, insecurity, right? So many feelings can come up. And the person who did the cheating is going to have to get really good with, okay, I caused this person that I really care about so much harm and so much pain. I have to be able to hold that if I want to move forward.
Wow, there's so much deep insight in all of this. Thank you for sharing all your wisdom on all this.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Any other questions, Rachel?
No, this is all, I feel like this applies to so many areas of relationships. I feel like I can just only imagine, Ayala, that your emotional capacity personally has to be huge to be able to handle this with everyone, you know? Because this is deep emotional dives. Yeah.
Yeah. I find it so juicy, honestly. Sometimes I joke like I became a therapist just so that I could see all the ins and outs of people's minds and experiences. And of course, you know, I want to help people have better experiences. I want to help people lead the lives and have the experiences that they want to have, like to be able to have those deep connections with others. Because that's such a cozy, safe feeling. And like ultimately, I think changes the world. Like when we can have our close people and have our needs met, we're going to be kind to other people. We're going to want to support and engage well with everyone else around us.
Is there anything else that you think like people should know, or things that you want to tell people?
I think I would just maybe plug myself that
Yeah.
if you want to see me as a client, I'm available to people who live in Oregon, but I'm building this program that could be accessible to anyone soon. So follow me on Instagram at LoveAndSexpert.
We will we'll link your Instagram so that people can follow you there. And then I know you're like building a kind of coaching course program right now. Can you tell us just like a little bit about what that focuses on for people?
Yeah, it focuses a lot on what we talked about here, kind of the barriers that you might face in getting to deeper connection or experiencing more pleasure in your life. And so I'm going to take you on a journey to, identify what you want, identify the barriers, identify how to communicate with your partner about it, and then lots of practice. And mindfulness is actually a huge part, one that we didn't get into so much here specifically, but mindfulness is going to be kind of woven through that program as well, because we really have to be able to notice ourselves and notice our experience. That's really what is also going to like deepen the pleasure of the experiences, being present, being engaged with ourselves. So I'll teach you some tools for that as well in the program.
Yeah. No, I think that's really awesome. And I think most of us could use that. I don't think any of us are perfect in our relationships, and there's always room to grow. So yeah, definitely follow Ayala on Instagram. We'll link everything below. And then, yeah, I'm excited for your program to launch. I think it's going to be great for a lot of people.
Thank you. I'm so excited to share it with more people and get to, reach more people than I can one-on-one in my office.
All right, everyone. Thank you for listening. We will catch you in the next episode.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us for another weekly reset. If you loved hanging out with us today, subscribe so you never miss an episode, and share this with a friend who could use a little calm and connection too.
This show is for education and inspiration, not medical advice. To learn more or connect with us, check out the show notes below. Until next time, take care of your mind, your body, and your heart.